About this amazing company.
Thank you, AVAIYA, for appearing in my inbox.
What Ike Allen and Andy Anderson have created at AVAIYA is what the world needs.
Welcome to AVAIYA's Healing Trauma Curriculum. Thank you so much for joining us. Our fellow teachers, Dr. Elsbeth Meuth and Freddy Weaver, are back with us today to talk about transforming trauma, creating wholeness in love and intimacy. Elsbeth and Freddy have assisted thousands of couples and singles in creating lasting intimacy and fulfillment in their relationships. They are featured on Showtime's documentary series Sexual Healing and the Emmy Award-winning NBC show Starting Over. Elsbeth and Freddy are also the best-selling authors of Sexual Enlightenment, endorsed by Dr. Michael Beckwith, and are the co-founders of the Tantra Nova Institute in Chicago. Thank you both for being here today.
Yeah, thank you.
Thanks, Ashley.
Absolutely. So, how can our viewers begin to heal trauma in the realm of intimacy and love?
Wow, that's a big question.
Yeah.
Because it is so primal,
Yes.
which can be actually trauma, can be actually pre-birth in uterine. It could be at birth, coming into this life, or right afterwards. So it could be when we are 10 years old. And often a trauma, it has to do with relationship. And I don't mean immediately intimate relationship, but the relationship with our mother or a teacher or our father, and whenever something got, if you want to call it like that, broken or distorted within us, and then that really colors how we are then later on when we are young adults or grown mature adults, where we are affected by these experiences, often not knowing that it may have to do with a particular experience. We just find ourselves struggling with something or suffering, or not being able to connect with oneself, like this wonderful holy sacred being that each of us is, and enjoying that both on a physical, emotional and spiritual level. So we have found in our work, actually both with ourselves in our own healing and clearing, and then working with hundreds and hundreds of men and women and couples, that to uncover that what may have been a traumatic experience, that this is really called for if we want to come into the wholeness of ourselves, where we can connect with our intimate self, and from there, opening intimacy and connection with another.
Yes. So what are tools that we might be able to use to navigate transforming trauma in intimate relationships?
Yeah, I would add that to that question that we all have different levels of trauma, microabrasion trauma and really impacting trauma, whatever it might be. The key in what we teach is to how to and tools that you can use to start to what I call flatten the traumatic experience as it lives synaptically and in our memory banks and in our emotions, are one, developing the witness state of mind, being able to be the watcher of how all that stuff has us, to begin to give a little bit of a pause, a separation from that. Because beyond all of the stuff that keeps us from being happy and free and and engaged, is this just being happy, being free. And so to do that, we have to develop this. So what we teach are practices in energetic yoga and how to really begin to tap into that universal listening that's available to all of us.
Yes. So, and in a moment, Freddy's going to guide us in a practice that will exemplify, tapping into the self, where we can breathe and listen to ourselves, which may not be that easy to listen, listen to ourselves or be in the witness, as Freddy called it, because when something overcomes me so much as the residue of trauma, can have us.
Mhm.
So, and that's the trick, how can we at that moment tap into a dimension of ourselves that gives us a little pause, a little freedom.
And
Yes.
that place is like no place, no mind, nowhere.
Mm.
And it's like that's the witness place. It's that zero, there's no evaluation or no opinion about whatever I'm experiencing. And it's from there we start to what I call again flatten the impact of all of it.
Beautiful.
Actually, what about if we just, I think maybe good to give an example.
Yes,
Also,
absolutely.
yeah, because
Absolutely.
when Freddie then is going to do the practice, all of us who are here right together now, we will be more connected to our feelings because trauma lives in the feeling realm. It doesn't live in the conscious mind.
Right.
Um, and so just to give it a little, that tactile, visceral.
Buy-in, because we all have some form of
Yes,
trauma. Yeah.
yes. And so, it for me, it was not too long ago, actually, that I revisited a probably the deepest trauma of my life. Um, so it had to do with that when I was in the womb, my parents, it was, post-war Germany, and I was the fourth, uh, actually then of 10 children, but the first four, they came 1 year after another.
Oh,
My
wow.
mother felt depleted. They considered aborting me, as I learned later, from my older siblings. And I did not know how much that, this vibrational knowingness from when we are in that fluid moving like this, that vibrations actually and what our parents think and feel may affect an embryo. But anyway, so I had that, remembering. Um, and there was a time not too long ago, actually, that this really flared up. And this time, I said, okay, Elspeth, go towards it.
Yes.
Because if this is around, and it really had me, um, I mean, in my adult life. And so what I discovered in really going into it and towards it was that I got that as this little Elsbeth in the womb, that I came out of the womb and that I'm alive had something to do with that, life wanted me. Because for most of my life, I had lived with a background interpretation and feeling of that I'm not wanted. But
Yes.
it's like, right underneath the surface, not like that it was a conscious thought.
Right.
But every lover, every relationship, there it was again. And so I needed to do a lot in order to be wanted. So there was never enough. I had to please, and I never felt fully loved because this imprint was much stronger than, the present moment of being with Freddy, who loves me so much.
Yes.
So, anyway, um, and that was an enormous clearing for me that now I live my life from I'm wanted even more strongly. I am welcome because if life hadn't welcomed me, I wouldn't be alive. So that aliveness and that being welcomed has not so much to do with my parents. I got that very clear because the old conversation was about my parents that they didn't want me. So um, freeing myself from that opened up a whole new space of loving, freely loving, without any agenda, and most importantly, receiving love
Yes.
and getting that I'm loved and I have nothing to do. I don't need to do anything to get and receive love.
Beautiful. And I love that you carried it further with the I am welcome here, because it can be such a journey just to get to the point before that. And I don't know that I've ever heard anyone take it that far to, I not only am I wanted here, I am welcome here. That's so huge.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is, and that just invoking those words and really embodying that feeling can really eliminate disease. Literally, we are making ourselves sick with the little, again, there's levels of disconnect that we have as far as, harm to us. For me, one of my stories I wanted to share was that when I was 5 years old, my first grade in elementary school, my father was a practicing physician, and my mom was a beautiful, loving mother. And they were going through a divorce, 5 years old, right, after having had that experience. And so I was in class one morning. This is in California. And I had my head down on my desk, and I was just feeling, I didn't know what was going on, just disconnected.
Yeah.
And it was time for the Pledge of Allegiance to the flag, and I didn't stand up. And so after it was over, the teacher, who happened to be white, grabbed me by the arm and pulled me outside, and she said, "If you don't like it here, you can just go back to Africa."
Oh
And
my God.
I didn't understand the slight, but what I did understand as a 5-year-old kid was the anger coming at me.
Yes.
And I was 5 then, I'm 65 now. So just multiply that times all the little micro abrasions. Now, I've been through college, I've lived all over the world. My life has been blessed, really. But yet these little things that happen, oftentimes we put in our memory banks and we internalize them. And then that's the disease that we see in so much of Black America and in America.
Yes.
And it's kind of a reckoning in terms of a social context, what we are dealing with now with racial and so on. And I think that we'll be a better world as we begin to confront these things and really start doing the practices that you're exposing people to in your work that you're doing and what we're doing, as to how to begin to get reconnected, as Elsbeth said, reconnected with ourselves, and start visualizing and bringing in the feeling of I'm welcomed.
Yes,
Yes.
actually, which applies to you too, that you are just welcome no matter what any teacher says.
No, absolutely.
Yes, no matter what any
Yeah.
teacher, any white person, and this may be getting I don't know what constraints I need to be within, but personally speaking, there's so much that Black America has experienced as a people and as a culture, just this diasporic experience that has been so traumatic, and it is time for that healing. It is time for that healing to happen. It is time for the social inequalities and the disparities to be closed.
Yeah, and I think there's good movement on that and all that's happening. But I didn't want to get lost in just the racial thing, but I wanted to keep it in the context of what you're sharing is how to heal these wounds.
And then having you be on the outlook always for that, not being wanted here, which is again and how that plays out then in intimacy and relationship.
Yes.
Loving really calls us into being open, into trusting. But if I have this background conversation that, I don't belong here, or I'm not wanted, by my parents, then that is what we bring unconsciously into intimacy, into love, into sexual intimacy, emotional intimacy, without even knowing.
We can't love anyone any more than we love ourselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we start to really love and that's for all of us. This is human, so yeah. So very good stuff.
And then the opportunity of healing that, because that is really what both Freddy and I have been working on in ourselves, because if we don't clear it in ourselves, how could we teach others and be there for others, hold space,
Yes.
And so What
Yeah,
about
so what I'm doing in my work is in my own personal growth is I'm listening for that disconnect. The same thing that that little 5-year-old kid felt with the anger. Not even so
Yes.
much just the disconnect. And so where that shows up for me in my life is where I do my breathing and I do my practices and I would again flatten and then bring that I am welcomed. And then my whole feeling and what I'm starting to see and create and bring into my life shifts.
Yes.
There's a big connection to what we think, what we believe, the placebo of life. I don't see red cars until I have one. I mean, so it's, that's really what we're doing is we're starting to begin to forward what we create through just the kernel of the thought.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. So will you speak for a moment on ways in which if someone is aversive, if someone is has been turning away from really looking at what those underlying experiences are, how can they maybe find the gentleness or the courage to begin to look at that in themselves?
Mhm. What about if Freddie, if you were to do the practice now, because that speaks
Yes.
so much to your question, how can we shift out of that intensity of that, traumatic flashback, not necessarily remembering the experience itself, or perhaps more importantly, being in that feeling that was there in that earlier experience.
Sure.
So like interrupting in the moment, in the now, because that's the only time when we actually can shift directions.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah.
Share, please.
Yeah,
Yes.
so yeah, again, so whatever trauma you might, recognize in your life, and however great or less, this is a practice we can use to again to start to flatten and reconnect. So if you could just sit up straight, if you're sitting up onto your sit bones, or if you're laying down, be in a comfortable flat position. Your eyes can be open, closed, or soft focus. Beautiful. Bring your awareness to breathing. Just bring your focus on following your breath into your lungs and down and extending the belly. Nice belly breath. Great. Now bring your attention and focus to your heart center located in the center of your chest. Continue your breathing into your belly, letting your thoughts come, letting your thoughts go. Your heart center is your center of love and compassion. Allow those words to reverberate and sink in. Love and compassion. Again, stay connected to your breath, feeling the rise of your belly on your inhalation, flattening of your belly on your exhalation. Beautiful. Now focus on bringing your breath into your heart as you inhale, down into your belly, filling your belly, and as you exhale, visualize sending your breath back up and out through that opening or through the heart, back out into the world. Stay with your breathing, letting your thoughts come and go, focusing on your heart center. Visualize the breath coming in, going down, filling the belly. Focused on sending now the breath back up and out through the heart into the world on your exhalation. Stay with that breathing, with that focus, that visualization. Breathing into your heart center on your inhalation, filling your belly. Following with your awareness, your breath back up and out through your heart center into the world, all that love and compassion. A few more breaths now. Stay with it.
And while you are breathing in and breathing out through your heart, visualizing the beauty of your heart, your love self, opening up to yourself. And while you continue breathing into your heart, into this opening in your heart and down into the belly and back out again, out of the heart, take a moment and notice how you're feeling right now and how your body is feeling. Notice any sensations or the absence of sensations. And notice your emotional state. Just notice. And notice your state of mind, your state of thought, witnessing. And then slowly come back by opening your eyes. And Ashley, if you may want to share a little bit how you feel right now.
Okay, so with the breath exercise, I feel like such an energetic tingling in my chest cavity, in that column between, between throat and heart and diaphragm. I feel a tingling in my fingertips and on the soles of my feet where I have them planted on the ground. My emotional state at first was very calm and serene, and then I was between staying in the calmness and working into some of the emotions and trauma that I'm currently dealing with in my own life, because we all have our own things. And I started to feel that sort of welling of, oh God, I'm going to cry on camera. but it's there, and there was a good, little release from that. So please pardon my tears.
Great. It's beautiful.
Yeah.
Authentic, and it's so great to see that you're allowing yourself to be seen, and
Yeah.
that being witnessed allows us a little more freedom by letting that energy out, and then we can start moving into what we most deeply want and desire.
Yes.
Oh,
Oh, Ashley,
tears of letting go.
thank you so much for sharing yourself like this.
Hmm.
Also, it's such, this in itself is a beautiful example how this practice actually allows us to listen more deeply to ourselves. Because without listening more deeply to ourselves, we cannot access it, whatever that traumatic place is, experience, leave alone clearing it.
Mhm.
If I don't access it, there's nothing to be cleared. So
Yeah.
we just keep it under. So thank you so much.
It's beautiful.
And what really encouraged me to go forward with diving into that here in this moment, in this session on camera, it recorded, is, for so long, one of the things that I've had to deal with is kind of hiding my emotions
Mm.
and kind of holding my emotions hostage for the
Hmm.
benefit of another,
Yeah,
right?
sure.
And so in that practice, I would end up hiding away whenever I would become emotional.
Yeah, yeah.
So I wanted to do this as an encouragement to anyone who's watching right now, to be brave enough to let yourself cry, and be
Yeah,
brave enough to let yourself cry in public,
yeah.
because it's not going to hurt you. You might go, oh no, I'm crying in public. This is not what we do. But you'll feel
It's
better.
what needs to be done. It's
Yes.
most people need to be seen because there's a lot of hurt. Look in the world. I mean,
Yes.
you can barely watch the news without crying.
Yes.
And that is really the place where we can access the trauma, because it's all in the feeling place. You say you didn't allow yourself to show your emotions, to keep them underneath. And that is the opening. And so I'm also so grateful that this practice, was of service to you and hopefully to others. And, actually we have a free gift that builds on this very practice.
Beautiful. Beautiful. I'm so glad. 'Cause-
It's a meditation that is a little bit longer than the one we did just
Mhm.
now, that will allow you and everyone who is listening to tap into yourself in a way where you can listen more deeply to yourself, including what your dreams and wants and desires are, including what may be in the way, because when we want to transform trauma, so that we can come to this wholeness within, in love and intimacy, and then in relationship, if we choose to go there, is that we tap, into that still place and listen, and like that, where we can rock, but also listen for that, what wants to be heard, what wants to come out, what wants to be expressed, what wants to be created.
Yes. And so you're using the word wholeness.
Hmm.
Will you tell us, in your experience, what does wholeness mean?
That's a great
Yeah,
question.
body, mind, and spirit.
Yeah.
And all of the again, trauma that we experience lives in all of those places. So in the exercise that we just did as an example, the overwhelm, the emotional self is what keeps most of us from allowing ourselves to get disconnected from this trauma. And we stay in our head about it and we keep rationalizing it, and there's nothing we can do because there's lots of proof as to why it's never going to change from the past.
Yes.
So just to give a sense of, how we may integrate, which is the precursor to wholeness. If I'm disintegrated, compartmentalized, then I don't feel whole. And with these energy centers, like what Freddy worked with us, is pretty much here the belly, the creation center, which is also the sexual center. It's creative energy. The green one, as he mentioned, that's the heart center, the love center. And then this is the spiritual, the mental, the divine, the consciousness center.
Intuitive.
And most of us are compartmentalized, because this is how we have learned to cope. So by tapping into our creative center, into our love center, into our consciousness center, we can clear whatever may be stuck there, and then they can flow with each other. We call it like they can communicate with each other, they can dance with each other, And so opening that channel so that we come into flow, and that yields the experience of wholeness.
Beautiful. That's so beautiful, because you're so right that we are encultured, we are taught that the epitome of one thing may be the exclusion of the other. The epitome of intellect may be the epitome of intellect and logic may be the exclusion of heart and emotion. But in pulling those together and allowing those to be in communication with each other, new things can bloom.
Wholeness,
New
yes.
understanding can bloom.
Yes.
Beautiful. Well said.
Yeah, we don't want to give up our mind. Our mind is brilliant. But if we are just stuck in there, then it's like that circular monkey mind.
Yeah, sometimes it's good to ask why, and other times you don't need to ask why. It just takes you out of the experience.
Yeah, you just drop into your heart center and feel, and that is the love energy that opens us up.
Beautiful, beautiful. And so I know that people who have suffered trauma often have difficulty trusting others. Can you share any suggestions for them beginning to learn to trust again?
Well, again, these practices of beginning to flatten the traumatic experience, how it lives for us, and then bringing in what that just naturally creates is a sense of trust that you can be okay. And once you can get that connected to yourself, you can start to venture out and be with others and listen for that trusting feeling in the presence of others. So it is an internal listening.
Yeah.
It's developing that listening.
And bringing it back to my example in my own life, by living from the place, from the context of being welcomed, there is actually no longer the question if I can trust or not.
Very good.
Because I am welcomed by life. Because I'm alive. you
Yes.
know. So then, oh, of course, I can trust life. You know, when I mean life, is like the life force energy that goes through each of us, that keeps us alive, the breath, you know, and we don't do the breath. The breath supports us at all times. You know, that is how much I'm cared for by life itself, or by universe. For some people, it may be God or the divine, you know, the universal intelligence that flows through us, that we are part of, not separate from. And so the question of trust disappears then. And that's divine.
I love it. I love it so much. Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing these practices and for sharing your wisdom. We are running a little bit low on time. I could speak to you forever on this. I really could. But I would like to remind everyone that there are two buttons below this video that will take you to a free gift and a special offer that Elspeth and Freddie have for us. Can you share a little bit about these, please?
Yes, I love to. So the free gift is a meditation called Creation Inspiration Meditation, where we guide you into tapping into your belly further, into this creation center, into your life force, so that you can draw on it, because that is really what keeps you alive. And if you feel disconnected from it, which trauma does, then you know you want to come back to that what is already there, so that you can tap into it and then guide that beautiful creative life force energy up into your heart center, the love center, the center of compassion, and then guide that love energy into your creation center. And so they start moving with each other in that meditation, and that will assist you in deeper listening of yourself, in healing what may pain you, in perhaps letting go, or perhaps being willing to go towards it more. And then, most importantly, that you can come out of the meditation with a new inner connection to your love self, to your intimate self, and, you know, to your alive self.
Thank you. Beautiful. That's so beautiful, and I love that it's leading you to strengthen that communication. You know, that it's leading you to begin to create with love, and through love create. It's gorgeous. Thank you so much.
Keep the healing going.
Yeah.
Yes, yes,
Very
absolutely.
good.
And then the special offer is that we invite you to join us at one of our introductory workshops, online workshops. They are live workshops over Zoom, so you get to work with us. It's a 2-hour workshop. It's an introduction where you will get a taste of then taking this further into your life in terms of intimacy with yourself and love with yourself, and then also into relationship, if that is what's up for you. You know, sometimes what's up for us is really connecting with the beloved within.
Yes.
We may have forgotten about that beloved. For others, they may want to, you know, deepen their connection to their beloved, to this kind of a beloved, um, or, you know, really reconnect because the spark may have gone out of the relationship. Or some people, you know, they are at the brink of divorce, or others are very happily together and feel that they may be another expansion available. So if anything of this resonates with you, do join us. And as Ashley said, the link is below.
Maybe we'll see you there, Ashley.
Maybe I will certainly be showing this to my husband. I
Yeah,
believe that
all
he
good stuff.
can it as well.
All good.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for offering these resources to our viewers. Are there any final insights that you'd like to share with us before we wrap up?
Keep loving your life.
And connect to your heart every day. When you drive, when you do the dishes, when you are angry, listen to here. It'll get you right back